They said old age brings peace. They said love only grows stronger with time. But after 42 years of marriage, one secret proved that betrayal doesn't retire, it waits.
At 71 years old, Harold Whitman believed he had already lived through every possible storm. He had survived financial hardship, the loss of friends, health scares, and the slow ache of aging joints. What he never prepared for was betrayal, especially not this late in life. Harold had been married to Eleanor Whitman for 42 years. Their life was modest but steady. They lived in a quiet Pennsylvania town, attended the same church for decades, and spent evenings watching old films or sitting silently on the porch, listening to the wind move through the trees. To outsiders, they were the definition of lifelong devotion. Eleanor was 70, sharp-minded, reserved, and deeply private. Harold trusted her completely. Trust, after all, was something they had built brick by brick over a lifetime. The first sign that something was wrong came quietly. One afternoon, Harold received a call from the local pharmacy about a prescription he didn't recognize. Assuming it was a mistake, he ignored it. Later that week, he noticed Eleanor growing protective over her handbag, something she had never done before. When he asked casually, she brushed it off with a tired smile. Harold told himself he was imagining things. Then came the letter. It arrived without a return address, slipped between grocery flyers and utility bills. The envelope was thin, the handwriting unfamiliar. Inside was a short note and an old photograph. The note read, "You deserve to know the truth before time runs out." The photograph showed Eleanor, much younger, standing beside a man Harold didn't recognize. They weren't touching. They weren't smiling widely. But something about the closeness felt unmistakable. Harold sat at the kitchen table for a long time, the room suddenly unfamiliar. That evening, he didn't confront Eleanor. He watched her carefully, how she avoided eye contact, how she spoke less, how she retired to bed early. Years of shared habits now felt like evidence he didn't know how to interpret. Days passed. Harold carried the secret alone, unsure whether he even wanted answers. At his age, truth felt dangerous. The next revelation came unexpectedly. During a routine visit to the community center, Harold ran into an old acquaintance named Thomas Keller, a widower who had recently returned to town. Thomas greeted Harold politely, but there was tension in his eyes. Later, Thomas approached him privately. "I didn't know how to tell you," Thomas said quietly. "But I think you should hear it from me." What followed shattered Harold's understanding of his own life. Thomas admitted that decades earlier, during a period when Harold worked long hours out of town, he and Eleanor had formed a deep emotional bond. It wasn't a brief moment, nor was it meaningless. It lasted years, hidden behind shared errands, quiet conversations, and secrets justified as companionship. "There was no intention to destroy your marriage," Thomas said. "But intention doesn't erase impact." Harold felt numb. The betrayal wasn't loud or dramatic. It was careful, patient, sustained. When Harold confronted Eleanor that night, his voice didn't shake. He simply placed the photograph and letter on the table. Eleanor didn't deny it. Tears filled her eyes as she admitted the truth. She explained that loneliness had crept in during Harold's absences, that she had felt unseen, unheard. What began as comfort became dependence. What became dependence turned into secrecy. "I never stopped loving you," she said. "But I was wrong to hide this." Harold listened without interrupting. 42 years replayed in his mind, birthdays, illnesses, shared losses. None of it erased the weight of deception. "What hurts most," Harold said quietly, "is not what happened. It's that you let me grow old believing something that wasn't fully real." Eleanor broke down. She begged forgiveness, not to undo the past, but to ease the present. Harold didn't respond immediately. Forgiveness, he realized, was not a switch, it was a process. In the weeks that followed, the town whispered. Old couples looked at each other differently. The illusion that age protected love was broken. Harold chose not to leave. Not because betrayal didn't matter, but because life was more complicated than pride. They entered counseling. Conversations were slow, painful, honest. Some days, Harold felt peace. Other days, grief. What surprised him most was not Eleanor's regret, but his own clarity. He learned that trust isn't measured by years, but by truth. And truth delayed can wound deeper than truth denied. By winter, Harold had changed. He spoke more. He asked questions. He no longer assumed understanding, he demanded honesty. Eleanor, too, changed. She stopped hiding behind time and routine. Their marriage didn't return to what it was. It became something else, fragile, cautious, real. Harold realized that cheating doesn't belong to youth alone. It doesn't fade with age. It hides in silence, comfort, and unspoken loneliness. And when it finally surfaces, even decades later, it still demands accountability. Moral: betrayal doesn't expire with age. Silence can protect comfort, but truth protects dignity, even at the end of life.